All right, welcome back to MLive's Dungeon of Doom podcast. It is Thursday, May 1st. The dust has settled from the NFL draft. The UDFA class seems mostly set with the roster. I'm Ben Raven. He is Corey Woods. Corey, how you doing?
What up, though, Ben? How's it going? Happy Thursday.
Yeah, that's right. Happy Thursday. Another busy day for you. Pistons tonight. Big Pistons game tonight. So we'll get you out of here, Corey. But we got enough. We got a lot to talk about in Lions World today.
Oh, absolutely.
We are somehow 1 week removed from the NFL draft's first round starting. What a blur of a week it's been. I can't believe it's already Thursday on the backside, man.
You know what? That is actually very scary to think about that a week has passed already, because I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, yes, today's Thursday. The draft was it wasn't 2 days ago? It was a week ago? Wow, okay.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried about how I'm a little worried about how time is going right now. We're in a multiverse or something. I'm not really feeling that.
I hear that, man. Yeah, our last recording, we did a quick recording. I guess that was Friday on Tyleik Williams and what we thought of the first round pick. And yeah, we'll cover that again today. We're going to go through each pick. I'm going to offer my best pick, biggest value, and who I think is going to be a starter from this rookie class on day one. We'll get into it from the top, man. Now that the whole class is here, the last time we talked on the pod was we just had Tyleik Williams pick. That was all we had. When you look at the full draft class, man, what is your first thought? What's your main takeaway? How do you think they did?
I think it was a solid draft. I think that Brad Holmes did pretty much what I expected him to do, and that was to stick to his board whether people like it or not. He looked at this team. In my opinion, he looked at this team and said, okay, we went 15-2 and we got knocked out in the divisional round, but we didn't get knocked out in the divisional round because we lacked, an edge rusher. We knocked out in the divisional round because most of our defense was on IR. So we don't need to go out and go do anything drastic. We need to continue to add on to what we already have and build that depth, and just hope we don't have another season where we're picking guys up off the practice squad to be defensive starters. So I think what they did was they added some much needed depth. I think, as we already said, the Tyleik Williams, I think that was just pretty much a no-brainer. I actually think that was the real no-brainer pick out of all of them, that one and Tate Rutledge. And everywhere else, they just picked up where they saw the value. So I think overall, it was a solid draft. I'm not going to go up here like, oh, A+, A-, but if you want to say that it was above average or it was just good, I think that's very apropos.
Yeah, no, I think the main thing that we need to convey to fans is that Brad Holmes does not see the need at edge rusher as great as we do or as they do. And like you said, he did not see it as a one starting level edge rusher away. And I mean, I know there were talks of them when they were moving up in the second round and the third round. They had a couple players in mind. One of those might have been an edge, and it just didn't work out. And they still went and got Tate Ratledge. And then in the third round, they were trading around, probably had a couple options in their mind. And the kid from Hillsdale via Arkansas at a Hudsonville Unity Christian, Isaac Tesla, was the 70th overall pick. And I just think the way that Brad is going to stick to his board. Brad is going to stick to the players that he's fallen in love with and that Dan is on the same page as falling in love with too. And I just, let's just get it out of the way first. The edge rusher questions, the edge rusher responses from Brad Holmes' press conference, a little contentious, a little fists up. He came in defensive. Detroit area columnists came up with their 95 edge rusher questions too when they drop into the beat. And I'll just say this. What's getting lost between us and Brad is that he thinks that we think they need an edge rusher just because Aiden Hutchinson got hurt last season. That's not where my mind is. I'll tell you where my mind is right now. They needed an edge rusher 1 year ago when I thought Aiden Hutchinson was a superstar that they should build around for the future. And it's still the same need that it is 370 days later, man. And it's the guy played 5 games last season and led the team in sacks by 3.5 sacks. The guy played 5 games. He played 5 games, and he was tied for third on the team with pressures and not far off from the lead in pressures. And if you take away Zadarius Smith's pressures from Cleveland, he's tied for second. And that's the problem, is that the pressure, the sacks, they're coming from one person. You're talking about wanting to take the next step to be a Super Bowl contender. And I know Brad, he's not listening to this, but if he was, Brad, it's not about Hutchinson. It's not about the injuries last season. It's about the fact that right now, your edge 2 and edge 3, one is Marcus Davenport, who's played 3 games in 2 years and has 6 sacks in 3 years. Great player, great fit. I respect you for sticking with this guy, but like, that's a red flag. That's a red flag. And then edge 3 is Josh Paschal, who a month ago at NFL owners meetings, Brad said he wanted to play inside more. So that's why we view a need at edge rusher. Levi is an interior guy by trade who can play defensive end and was forced into that last year. The reason why we keep asking about edge rusher is because you're going into the season with nearly the exact same situation you went into last season with. That is why we ask about edge rusher. That is why we thought it was a pertinent need, fit, whatever in this class. Like, he just can't let go of, I'm not just going to draft for need. I'm not going to just draft to fill in a depth chart. Well, like, man, this was a pretty deep class of edge rushers. And Brad's earned a lot of leeway, and he still has that leeway. I mean, seriously, I think any way you slice it, he's already in the top 3 or 4 general managers in Detroit sports history, and not just the Lions. So let's give the man his flowers. But I'm just saying, there's been a disconnect on this edge rusher situation. Was I accurate there? Do you got anything to add on that, Corey?
You were 100% accurate. And just to add on to that, like you said, this was a need. As great as Aiden Hutchinson is, heck, Aiden could have played all of last season. They still would have needed another person opposite Aiden to set the edge. It's you okay, like you just said, Davenport, injury history, Josh Paschal, injury history, Al-Quadin Muhammad, look, for credit, when they got him, he came in, did the job. I thought they should have brought him back. But again, you are still missing high-level talent, or at least good level talent that you can rely on to be opposite Aiden. So it's not just because Aiden got injured that, we got to go to get an edge rusher. No, you need one in general, which is also why people were concerned that you released Zadarius Smith when you did and let him go to the open market. Because let's just say, hey, we're going to go ahead and not go edge. We're going to just keep Zadarius, bring him back to get him in for a whole offseason, and then maybe draft somebody in the later rounds like they did with Ahmed. Okay, I think people would have been able to stomach that better. But when you literally are having Aiden coming off such a gruesome injury, and you have other guys that have injury concerns at that position, Brad, it's not about questioning you. It's just about, hey, you guys are. Yeah, you addressed needs in everywhere else, but hey, this is a need also as well. So, I don't know.
Yeah, and we'll break out. I fully agree with you, man, because I think if Zadarius Smith was still in the picture, I don't think we'd be hearing as much as we're hearing right now. Like it really. I'm not sitting here saying they're one edge rusher away, but they're one edge rusher away from me viewing this as like an obvious weakness on a deep roster. Yeah. I mean, there's so little to complain about this team. And I think that is also why this is under the microscope too, because there's nothing else to complain about. Brad, you've done a great job. I'm making it clear, man. You're freaking good at your job. People want you here for the rest of your freaking life. Like the media, like we so rarely say anything close to bad about Brad, and that's earned. That's not us kissing up or sucking up to him. So I just think it's crazy that when we ask about something like that, it immediately turns into Dukes up. You guys don't know crap and stuff like that. It's like, man, you're banking on Marcus Davenport, Josh Paschal, Al-Quadin Muhammad, and hey man, great story from the Boise State kid, Ahmed Hassanein. There we go. There it was. Getting used to that one. It's 1 week.
Yeah, that's
guys being on the roster. I'm learning the pronunciation. Stick with us. Great story, great trajectory. He's only been playing football since 2019, but I'm not going to sit here. I haven't seen this kid on the field. I can't sit here and say he's going to make an impact. He's going to move the needle, at least in year one. Like, I'm not going to count him out. He's only been playing ball for 6 years, and he was a freaking NFL draft pick. So hats off to him. Like full disclosure. I mean, his numbers are like 32 tackles for loss and 22 sacks over the last 2 seasons. So like something there. Had a sack in the playoff game for those looking at Boise State's schedule. So like, but man, yeah. If you put Zadarius Smith back in that depth chart, I think we're all chill right now. I think this would have been like a 22-minute podcast. We've discussed one pick and we're 11 minutes in. But like we that's classic. We just had to get the edge rusher talk out of the way because I just think there's a disconnect with the fans. There's a disconnect between us and Brad on this topic right now. And I think, and this is not shots fired at anybody, but it's a disconnect from the columnists that pop into our beat once or twice a week, and they're talking to Brad, and he's asking them questions, and they're saying, yeah, I am asking this because of Aiden Hutchinson. No, we're not asking edge questions. We don't view edge as a need because of Aiden Hutchinson. We view edge as a need because Aiden Hutchinson, every time he's been on the field, has been carrying 50 bodies up a hill, taking enemy fire.
He can't do it alone. That's the concern. It's not about Aiden's injury. It's about that Aiden can't do this job by himself. Like again, you perfectly laid out. From week 5, he was gone, and he still led the team in sacks. That is a problem.
I mean, yeah,
I don't see how you cannot see it as such. So yeah, Brad, hey, you know you're bored. You know the value. We get that, but at the same time, when aside from Aiden Hutchinson, the other edge rusher options have not really panned out to be really that great of and what I mean by not that great is just the availability and the productivity.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, first round pick, Tyleik Williams, I view that as a long-term move. They love the idea of pairing him with Lee McNeil. DJ Reader, I think, has 1 year left on his deal.
Yep.
Injury history there. Going to be without McNeil for a little bit to start the season. Going to be without Wingo, I would assume, for training camp. He's going to be probably on a little quicker timeline, but like, man, hey, I don't hate that first round pick, but it is one of those situations where it's like, okay, like we talked about it. We knew interior defensive line was a possibility. It just was, all right, now go get yourself an edge rusher. If you're gonna draft the interior defensive line guy that you fell in love with, go nuts, man. The guys that you have fallen in love with have built this team from a laughing stock to a back-to-back NFC North champ, like playing in the playoffs every year. So trust your gut, but like it is like trying to put that roster puzzle together, man. It's like, all right, there's a pretty glaring need on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson because like Aiden Hutchinson immediately makes your defense better. It immediately makes your pass rush have a venomous bite to it. But like, man, you're trying to be a contender. Aiden Hutchinson, it's taken guys 15 games to get what Aiden Hutchinson gets pressure wise in 5 games. And that's the problem. It's like, it's like putting prime Kobe on the Charlotte Bobcats. The man needs some help. Like, just like, so I don't know. But I will say the second round pick of Tate Ratledge, man, dude, fills a need, gets it in the second round. Like, and I'll just get it out of the way here. Tate's the starter on day one to me.
Yeah.
Like from this draft class, Tate's the starter, man. So like we got to talk to Tate. We got to learn a little more about Tate, man. I love that pick. I think it's the best pick of the entire draft for them. That's an instant starter to me. What do you think, man?
A lot of people have, I've read a lot of the follow-up reports from different outlets, and a lot of people have the same opinion that Tate Ratledge is a day one starter. I believe this is a guy who did not allow a sack in his last 300 snaps. I think he only had like 1 snap, and like people allowed like 7 pressures in his last 300 snaps. That's crazy. So, to be able to, I know they're high on Christian Mahogany, rightfully so. But again, we also said last time we had the concerns with Glasgow. Even though it was an injury, we think we can bounce back. There's still concerns there. And then you also, too, Kevin Zeitler bolted after
Mhm.
1 year, went to Tennessee. So what do? You go ahead and you replace that with a guy that's really regarded as being pretty violent on the
Yeah.
O line, and now you're making your strength. You're continuing to make what I think is their best unit a strength. So I
Yeah.
think it was a very smart pick. You're infusing him with young talent, and you're giving Hank Friendly more to work with to be able to groom. So hey, if some of these guys start to walk away, or whether retirement or just leaving
Yeah.
the franchise, you are already set to go with somebody that should go ahead and plug in. So I thought it was a smart move. And again, like you said, Brad goes off of his board, and to be able to have a guy of Tate with his talent being there, and that's a real need for you. Yeah, smart move. Go and grab him.
Yeah, and I bet that conversation with Brad and Dan about Tate was about 2 seconds long because Tate, man, a team captain at Georgia. I think it was 37 starts at Georgia. He's someone who played through injuries last season and was still at such a high level. He's got the size, he's got the power, and like the leadership is in that mind. Like when he got asked about playing through injuries, man, like I was just like I'm just picturing Dan Campbell sitting back, drinking a coffee, reaching for some Copenhagen and smiling while he's listening to that. Like just like I owed it to my teammates to be there. I owed it to this school to be there. It's just like, all right, that's
that was music to his ears, because that is something that Dan and even former Lions running back coach Deuce Staley talked about. Are you hurt or are you injured? Because a lot of guys are hurt, but if you're injured, don't sit down if you're injured. But everybody's hurt.
Exactly.
Everybody's hurt. So
I mean, that is. Mm-hmm.
So
like they're not telling guys to go play through an ACL.
Yeah. So being able to have a guy that's just going to play, have the mindset to play through that, probably music to Dan's ears, like you said, he was probably all smiles.
Yeah, the way I'm viewing it is, I'm assuming Tate Ratledge is going to start at right guard, Mahogany at left guard. He started an NFL game at left guard last year. The Lions have a lot of guards, a nice youth infusion, but like all of them besides Glasgow are like right guards by trade. And I know that it's not an issue. Like it really isn't. These are NFL professional players. Hank Fraley is their coach. So they're going to work through that stuff. But like, it's just something to consider when looking at the depth chart. But I do look at it as Ratledge, Mahogany with Glasgow as a top level starter on the bench, ready to go in at either guard spot, ready to fill in for Frank Ragnow at center if needed. And the Lions do value that. But I think they're going to go with the youth infusion at the 2 guard spots right there. And why not when you got a coach like Hank Fraley? But that takes us into the 3rd round pick, number 70, the trade that almost didn't happen to move up in the order for Arkansas wide receiver Isaac TeSlaa via Hudsonville, Michigan, played a couple years at Hillsdale College. He is the biggest risk. He is the biggest unknown. He is a potential sleeper. Man, a lot of people viewed him as a slot receiver. Nah, Brad says no. There's some inside-outside versatility there. His size, his speed, his vertical leaping ability. He does add a new flavor to that offense. And while he might not be counted on much in year 1 with Patrick and Raymond back, like they're going to find ways to get him in there. I mean, he's a 3rd round pick, top 70 pick, the 70th overall pick, and just a freak athlete. But that is undoubtedly the biggest risk of this draft, no doubt, is just the fact that they had to trade up 3 third-round picks, both AG comp picks and their 3rd-round pick. Like, they moved up a lot, but he's a developmental project, but he's one of the best athletes in the entire class. So, like, it was funny that Brad drafted TeSlaa and then wears a height, weight, speed shirt with the line cross through it when TeSlaa is no shots fired there, but, like, pure athlete pick. So that was just funny timing to me. What are your thoughts on the Michigan kid getting to play for his hometown team? Pretty sweet draft call video too, where he says Miss Ford in the room of rub. So good for him, man. Happy for him showing up to the Lions facility for your top 30 visit in a custom Lions jersey is diabolical, but it clearly worked.
Yeah, I thought that was I thought both of those pretty cool. I believe the story was he had that jersey as a kid, so he still wore the same one. And just seeing the video with his family, it was just like that. Like, I think my friend said it was a shockwave when they heard him say Mrs. Ford, and everybody caught on like, oh crap,
Great
video. So I thought it was a I looked at some of his highlights. Obviously, there's some talent there.
Mhm.
I think that, with most people, like, okay, they went and got the tackle, they went and got the guard. A lot of people are thinking like, oh, this is where the edge is coming. All right, Brad. And they went and got wide receiver. Now, let's be real. Wide receiver was a need, but I do believe that going up for TeSlaa is the biggest risk. It could be, some could consider it a reach. But at the same time, and this is no disrespect to Tim Patrick, because I believe for what he did last year, it was very solid. But I believe from that third wide receiver role, the Lions still lacked that speed playmaking ability that they had with Josh Reynolds. And I believe that with, Scotty Montgomery now working with the wide receivers, and then John Morton, new offensive coordinator, he's regarded for his work with wide receivers. TeSlaa could be a sleeper. They could get some work in with him, and he could possibly be that Josh Reynolds guy again, maybe at some point during this season, because again, like you said, third round pick, that's still a pretty high pick. Got to see the field, but then also he could be their third guy from year to come, or who knows? Things happen in the NFL. We saw Luka Doncic get traded in the NBA for something. Who knows who gets traded? He could end up being a number 2 at some point. But I do believe that it was a need. So I don't hate the pick. I'm indifferent on it. I'm indifferent on it. I think they could have went edge, but if he works out, again, Brad looks like being the smartest guy in the room if it works out.
Yeah, and I know there were a couple interesting edge guys available at that pick that might have even been the main reason the Lions were trying to trade up there. I know the Louisville cat, Ashton, blanking on his last name right now. Ashton there you go. Thank you. He was my favorite non-first round edge prospect for them. That move up, he was still on the board when that trade got announced. But man, hey, we're talking about a third round pick. I know it's the 70th overall pick, but like, we'll get off TeSlaa here in a minute, but like, relative athletic score enjoyers here. Shout out Kent. He ranked 29th of 3,800 wide receivers scored from 87 to 2025. I mean, he's 6'3", 214 pounds, ran the 40 in 4.3 seconds, and hit 39.5 inches on his vertical jump. So like that's a freak. I mean, that's not just an athlete. That's just not a good NFL athlete. That is a freak athlete with size, with length, with explosion, man. Like you said, Josh Reynolds, the main thing they've missed from Josh Reynolds is his red zone ability. Like, just that guy for Goff. Like, man, he's kind of open. Let me put it up high. Go get that thing.
Yeah.
So we'll see. With Tim Patrick's injury history, 1-year deal. Raymond is a trusted guy. For as long as Khalif Raymond can play football, he's going to have a home in Detroit. But like,
yeah, he's not going anywhere.
No, but like for real, no way. But he's a gadget offensive player. He's a returner.
Yeah.
He's a glue piece. He's what you need. You need guys like that, but they needed that length. They needed that size. They needed that explosion, and they took a risk. They did. They took a risk. They did not take a risk in the 5th round because, man, I called this pick the best value of the draft for the Lions. Pick 171 in the 5th round via trade with the New England Patriots. Brad was working them trades. Miles Frazier, man, LSU offensive guard. Impressed with that pick. Impressed with speaking to him. Impressed with the things I've read about him. And, like, honestly, a wild card in that guard discussion.
Yeah, I didn't know too much about him before the draft, but just reading up on him, talking with him, the fact that he and Wingo are teammates and there's familiarity there. So, and he said that they used to always talk about, Wingo to talk about how impressive Detroit is, and what it's like to be in an organization. So it's good that he knows what he's getting into. And again, we kept talking about adding more depth of guys, coming and going. This is another guy for Fraley to be able to groom and develop, be probably another rotational piece into that line. So it was a smart move. It just went ahead with the theme of the draft outside of the TeSlaa pick, is that Brad sees that the trenches need to be addressed, and he wants to get ahead of it now. He wants to get ahead of it now before it becomes a big issue later on down the road. So not mad at it.
No, the Lions are always going to stockpile their trenches on both sides of the ball, especially on that offensive line. I mean, Frazier, fifth-year senior, 3-year starter at LSU, spent most of his time at right guard, has bounced around a little bit. I think he started at left tackle while he was at Florida International, but at LSU, in the SEC, he did not allow one sack last season and allowed only one quarterback hit across 902 snaps. It's an experienced player. That's a smart player. That's a wild card for this guard discussion, because if he shows up in training camp, I mean, I don't know, man.
Might be some uncomfortable conversations.
I mean, honestly, if he shows up and he's as good as because that is the value pick, because a lot of people thought he was going around 4. I mean, a lot of people had him higher than he fell. So that's one that I've kind of oh, that's a good pick right there, Brad. The next pick, round 6, Ahmed Hasnain. There it is. I'm trying on that one. I'm so sorry. I'm looking at the pronunciation guide, and I think it's getting in my head more than it's helping. But the Boise State edge rusher, round pick, 196, the first Egyptian player ever drafted. He spoke at the Combine about how that was a goal of his, how he wanted to work with the NFLPA, how he wanted to work with NFL Africa and just build that, be the face of football in Egypt, because he said there's so many people here that want to play football. And what a story. He's only been speaking English and playing football since 2018 or 2019. And like I said, 32 tackles for loss, 22 sacks, I believe, over the last 2 seasons.
Yep.
Had a sack in the playoff against Penn State. What an awesome story. He fits the build of what they're looking for. I think he's 6'3", 270, something along those lines, man. I know it's not the needle-moving edge rusher pick, but, man, that is that's a potentially sneaky play by Brad to not address edge until the 6th round, and then maybe still get someone who can be a key part of your rotation in year 2. I don't see it this year. There could be an opportunity at edge this year just based on everything we opened the show with, but I like that pick. I do like that pick. I don't love that pick because it's a 6th round pick, but I do like that pick, and I see the vision.
I like the idea of the pick for several reasons. The first one is that because he has not played the position for so long, I believe there is still a lot of untapped potential there.
Absolutely.
And when you have Casey Rogers, who's regarded for his work as a defensive line coach, and this is something that you brought up, even albeit a different position, you have Kelvin Shepherd as your defensive coordinator, who loves project pieces, as shown with Derek Barnes, as shown with Malcolm Rodriguez. He likes those guys that come in ready about the team, ready to learn. This could be one of those project pieces that he could see it's possible he could see some action this year. But
absolutely,
we could see the value of this pick 2 to 3 years from now after he gets in that NFL training. And he had a humility about himself when speaking that seemed like a guy that wants to just come in and learn and do what he can to get on the field. Because, there are some guys where, when you draft them, they either come in with their own mindset, hey, I'm doing things this way, or, hey, I'm drafted this high, I know I'm touching the field.
Mm-hmm.
As great as he was with his talent, he still is coming in like, whatever they need me to do, I'm willing to do it. And he has a motor, and have that motor and that humility and the desire to get better. It could end up being a very sleeper pick if everything pans out. So that was one of Tesla was your sleeper pick, but your sleeper pick that was also a risk. My sleeper pick is Ahmed. I think this could be the sleeper pick if everything pans out correctly.
Oh, man, just the trajectory through his last 2 years, his last 3 years, his path here, it's like, man, you got that much better. I know Boise State's a big-time football program, but, the Boise State's not the Detroit Lions or the NFL.
Yeah.
It's not the SEC or the Big Ten either. But, the fact that you got that much better in 2-3 years there, man, that really does speak to there's a ceiling here. And, yeah, I do. I love that. I love that pick. I'm changing my tune. I do love that pick because we're talking about the 6th round. We're talking about the 6th round. And this is the type of guys that I've always believed this way. Once you get past the 5th round, draft weird, unique athletes who can do something that others can't, or draft guys like this that have been playing football for 5 or 6 years and have already put themselves on the radar to be drafted, to be a key player for a college football playoff team. So like, hey, all love there. We'll combine the 2 7th-round picks. We'll call this the Dave Phipp division. We got safety Dan Jackson out of Georgia. And my God, we've got another Georgia Bulldog, Dominic Lovett, 14 picks later in the 7th round, a wide receiver from Georgia, third player from Georgia in 2024. Like we said a week ago, not the Tyleek Williams podcast, but a week ago, with Jordan Reed. Like, what's Brad look for? He looks for starters, potential captains from big-time programs. 3 Georgia picks, big-time program. You got the captain in Ratledge. You got the career walk-on in Dan Jackson, who just fought and scratched and clawed for his role. But, like, man, Jackson's got some blocked kicks to his game. He's got some clutch plays to his game. He just seems like someone that if it's not too big for him in camp, there's going to be a special teams role for him. And Dominic Lovett, man, I mean, that was a productive wide receiver for the last 3 years from Georgia and Missouri. But like, and I was with Nolan Bianchi at the Combine when we were listening to Lovett's session. And he's just like, I love playing gunner. I love playing special teams. And Brad said it himself. If you're on the roster bubble, you're a rookie, you're the 6th wide receiver, or you're the 4th or 5th safety, you're going to get that bump ahead of the other guy, even if he's better than you at that position, if you can contribute to special teams. And that's what these 2 picks were. Pick 230 in the draft, pick 244 in the draft. That is the witching hour. That thing's about done. So he went out and found 2 guys that can play their position, safety, wide receiver, but 2 guys that are going to earn their keep, at least in year 1 on special teams. So like I just said with Ahmed, these are the type of late round picks I like guys that there could be a role here for. Maybe it's not offense or defense, but there's something here for you if you can step up and prove yourself.
I'm going to go in reverse with the Dominic Lovett pick. As soon as I saw that pick, and I believe I said it to you, I said, well, there goes Antoine Green. And sure enough, wasn't a couple of days later, the Lions part ways with Antoine Green. Wish him the best. But it just made sense. Like, okay, there's got to be an odd man out. He has talent to him. Again, another guy, like you said, he was productive during his time at Georgia, but he said one thing that just stuck out. Again, similar to Ahmed. I want to do what I got to do to get on the field. So if it's special teams, put me there. Just get me on the field.
Yeah.
With Dan Jackson, when we were doing our previews leading up to the draft, I had him as a possible day 2, day 3 fit for the Lions. And just because of the fact that they needed depth at safety, they needed that special teams depth. And also too, with Joseph being waived last year, they needed to go ahead and add another piece to replace him. So I just thought it just made sense to go ahead and bring in an extra body. Don't know how much time he'll see on the field, but it just made sense to take a chance on a guy like that. If again, a career walk-on, I mean, a guy that has to fight and claw for his story. What is that? That's grit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you're a Detroit Lion, so it just made all the sense in the world.
Yeah, and only 1 year as a starter at safety for Georgia, and he makes, I think, the 3rd All-SEC team. That's not nothing for a walk-on who's a 1-year starter. I mean, I know he had some big academic scholarships, but he was a walk-on. Like
a walk-on.
He fought for everything he got at Georgia. So, like, just that's the main takeaway from this year's draft. Another Brad Holmes draft. Guys that you can see the fit with their culture, with how they want their players to handle themselves, for where they want their players to come from, and just the backgrounds and stuff like that. I mean, they had a lot of beef. There's a lot of beef. There's a lot of upside. There's a lot of athletes because, once again, it's one of the most athletic drafts. I think the 3rd most athletic draft NFL Next Gen Stats gave it. So, like, I think that's 2 or 3 years in a row they've been up there on that. But I mean, I get the complaints. I get the questions. Yes, there's still a red flag opposite Aiden Hutchinson, an edge rusher, but like, they got some pieces, man, because Williams is going to have to play early with those injuries on the defensive line. Ratledge is probably going to be a starter out of the gates. Tesla, hey, man, who knows? That's a wild card. Yeah. Like, absolutely. So, like, I think Brad Holmes reminded us that he's going to continue to just stick to the path no matter what that got him here. And I can't disagree with that. I just wish he would level with us and see eye to eye and make a better attempt to understand why us, the beat writers I'm talking specifically about the beat writers, not the columnists, the beat writers who were in that building every single freaking day for 6 months. I wish there would be a little effort to understand why we're asking what we're asking, to get on the same page of us and not just to take one columnist word as the word for the entire beat, because that's not how it is. Like, we're not saying, man, you messed this up. No, we just want to understand your thinking a little bit here. Like, whatever. He's doing a great job.
I just think he's on, what was the remarks he said the other day a little bit contentious. Absolutely. I'm like, whoa. But if I could kind of like, and I'm not saying I'm Brad Holmes, but if I could kind of like step into, maybe psychoanalyze, step into his thought process for a second, I'm wondering if he's of the thinking of like, okay, I get here, we go 3, 9, 12, 15, back-to-back division titles. We saw our first NFC championship in about 30 plus years. Yeah, we lost in the divisional round, but that was due to lack of available players. I wonder, is he taking the questions as a slight to him and what he's done, as opposed to just an honest question? Because I think there are some, depending on what he listens to or doesn't listen to, there are some critics of Brad, and I do think it's a little bit unfair because this guy has engineered the most winningest Lions product of the modern era. So I wonder if he's just being a little bit on the defensive side, where like, hey, back up, look at what I've done so far. Just let me work. But again, in this business, nobody is above reproach. So you got to be able to being asked questions when other people see something is a need, and it's not just because of one particular situation, i.e. Aiden's injury. So I'm just kind of wondering if he kind of like putting everything all together and taking people asking him about the edge as a slight to his acumen for building the team.
Yeah, and I wish he would just take a step back and realize that we're asking about one position. There is a superstar starter on, and there's just so little to complain about on the rest of this roster that we're focusing on the one red flag that's waving itself in the middle of the field, and that's why we're asking about it. That's why you've done such a good job that we have one position to ask about. Like I wish he would take that step back and be like, oh, yeah, they're asking about one player where the other half of that starting lineup is a freaking superstar. Yeah. But hey, that's all we got. We went through it. We discussed it. Brad, turn off your radio. Turn on the Dungeon of Doom podcast. This has been Ben Raven and Corey Woods. And we are MLive's Dungeon of Doom podcast. Remember, Dungeon of Doom at mlive.com. 24/7, 365. Thoughts, voice memos, questions, send them. I'm Ben Raven. He's Corey Woods. We are your Dungeon of Doom podcast.